Tyler Brown from GuitarLessons365.com. I've got a great one today. We're going to learn how to do The Memory Remains by Metallica. So before I get into it, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already and ring that notification bell so you'll know when I release a new video. And please, real quick, check out My Guitar Academy. You'll see the link in the description below. That'll give you a free 7-day trial to My Guitar Academy, which contains all of my guitar courses covering everything from improvisation to technique, ear training, theory, guitar tone, you name it. Got a lot of cool stuff over there. So please go check it out. It's also the best way to really support what I do here on YouTube, because I couldn't sit here and put out a bunch of free songs while sitting on YouTube if I didn't have my academy. So I appreciate y'all, all the people that do support me over there, and I hope to see you there if you're not a member already. Let's jump into this song. So we are tuned down a half step. So everything down, every string down a half step to E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, E flat. All right, so that'll get you in tune with me and the album. And then we have, you know, it's just obviously a little bit more simplistic when they started going, getting a little bit easier. Black Albums, here's quite a bit easier than a lot of their early stuff. But I'm going to be going through all the riffs. Most of the fills, not all of Kirk's solo work I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing like his main solos and some of the fills, but like during the second, I think it's the second chorus, I'm just going to kind of skip all the fills that are going on there. The extended chorus is kind of, I'll kind of show you some stuff that you can do. He's just kind of messing around with E minor pentatonic. You know, so I'll tell you kind of what he's doing, but it's kind of like, kind of meanders through that whole chorus. So I just thought, you know what, let's just not try to get that note for note. Anyway, so the rest of it pretty much we will. So we'll start with this opening riff. So that's similar to what we're playing in the chorus. We're going to start with this power chord, this D power chord off the 5th fret of the A string. Slide up 2 frets. And then you're going to hit the low E string a couple times. And then back to that E chord a couple times. So repeat that. So you basically do that about 3 times. And then just to end it, jump up here and grab this F power chord off the 8th fret of the A string. And then we get to this main riff, which is kind of played, they kind of vary how they play it throughout the song slightly. So I kind of, you know, kind of show you all those variations and stuff too. So we have this. Now on the recording, there is an octave higher part being played there too. So you just... They don't do that live though, and it's kind of pretty low in the mix. So I'm just gonna kind of do like they do live, and both Kirk and James are hanging out on the lower version of the riff. It could even be an octave pedal. I don't know, it doesn't really sound like an octave pedal, but it might be. They're definitely using an octave pedal a little bit later though. So here's the main riff. You're gonna start with this, the open E string, and then you're gonna do a, now that's kind of a quick hammer 5 to 7 on the A string, then back to the low E string, and then back to the 5-7, hammer on. And then we're going to go over to the D string, 5, 7, bend up on the 7, release, pull off to 5, and then over to the 7 on the A string. So I have this. So that's kind of what I call just kind of the normal way of playing the riff. Now when he's doing this, he's a little bit random. James is a little bit random at how many times he plays everything here. So he'll do kind of like this. Like when he hammers on that second hammer on. hit it a few more times, or hit the low E a few times. He's kind of all around, but he's kind of just mixing it up a little bit on the recording. And there's no kind of really pattern to it. It's just kind of... So I kind of get that gist. The riff itself is just... But as you're holding some of the notes, you can kind of hit them a couple extra times just to kind of push it more. So. Now, after you've done that riff 3 times, you're going to come back here and play 3 on the low E string, then 5 on the D string, and then 2 on the A, and then 5 on the D. You just hold it, just move that index over to the 2nd fret. Into the E power chord. And then some muted hits where he's kind of hanging over this kind of harmonics around the 5th fret. And then we get to the verse riff, which is similar to that main riff, but has some variations where he'll bend up the notes a little bit different and stuff. So it looks like this. All right, so that's basically the same riff. Now I'm going to tell you kind of as we go through it the normal way, which is kind of resolving it down to that 7th fret on the A string. So we have this the first time that you play the riff, it's the normal way. This is the verse here. Then you start over. So that second ending, instead of going resolving to that 7th fret on the A, it does that. It still does that pull off 7 to 5 on the D, but then goes back to that 7 on the D and bends it up a whole step. So look at this. So the first time, 2 times through, the first the normal, and then the second one with the bend. And then you 3rd time, normal. Same ending as before, then you repeat. This time with the bend up. So we did normal, kind of the normal version of playing it, then the one with the bend, and then back to the normal one. So that's 3 times through, then that little ending. Then we basically started it over again. But this time, the order that he does everything's a little bit different. We have the first one that you hear is with a bend. And then we have the second time of playing the riff after we repeated that ending. Basically, so the second time through here, this. We have that, and then we have this little alteration. So that little alteration is a little bit weird to hear because it sounds like he kind of holds on that D. But you hear Kirk play it later and you hear him go down to the beat. So you kind of choose to do what you want there. I think it's slightly different between that verse and the later verse. So we have basically this. So that's kind of hammering on 5 to 7, then going on the low E. Over to 5 on the A. Now you can choose to hold there, or you can go and then go back and hit the low E. And that might make sense to hit the low E because when Kirk plays it later, he might be harmonizing that with the fifth above it when he goes. Why James is going. So they're kind of harmonizing those two. Or so whatever you want. So basically, what we have so far, this is after that little ending. We're back to the riff again. First one's bent. Alteration right here. And then the next one's normal. Sorry. And it just goes there. So let me just play through that whole first verse. It's going to be probably easier than me calling out what version everything is. So it looks like this. Back to E. I kind of thinking of those little harmonic muted hits. And then we get to the actual chorus, first time through the chorus, and we have this. So that's similar to that opening riff of the song. So we're picking that D power chord at the 5th fret of the A string. And then slide up to the 2 frets. And then a couple hits on the low E, and then back to that chorus. So wait this. Repeat that. So we did that earlier. So you do it 3 times, and then we have this little ending to it now, which is that D power chord off the 5th fret of the A, then jump down to the G power chord off the 3rd fret of the low E. So we have this. All right, and then you repeat. But here, instead of doing that, you just go up and, just like the intro, hit that power chord at the 8th fret there, the F power chord on the 8th fret of the A string. All right, and then we have Kirk's first solo that comes in. So this solo is going to be played over the main riff that you learned earlier. So that's what James is playing. So we have this going on with Kirk though. So it sounds like this. All right, so obviously I had some wah pedal going on there. I'm gonna not do that while I'm actually demonstrating how to play it, but that was a little performance thing of it, and so I used it there. But we're gonna have here this opening phrase of the solo like this. So you can use the neck pickup, at least at the beginning of this solo, and we have just a... So that's kind of, it starts with a pre-bend at the 14th fret on the G string, a whole step pre-bend, release, down to 12 on the G, and then down to 14 on the D. Then we have this, just hammer 12 to 14, hammer 12 to 14, over to the double stops at the 12th fret on the G and the B. And back down to that 14 on the D. So far we have this. Then back to some more double stops. That's the 12, then the 14 double stops, then G and the B. Then in release, back to the 12s. Down to the 14 on the D again, and then back to the double stops, 12s, and then the 14 with a slight bend there, so we have this. So I'll kind of turn that back to the bridge pickup. So So kind of just like. And that last one's kind of bent up. So slower again. And then we have this. So that's a kind of more the same, bending the 14 double stops down to 12, the 12 double stops, down to 14 on the D, back to the 12 double stops, and the 14 with a slight bend. So like this. So far we have this. So then we start that same lick we just did, except that those last 14s are substituted for the 14th on the D. So it is. So he just resolves it there. So same lick, but instead of this, at the end we have this. The 14 on the D. So them both together. And then we have this little thing that ends it. So that's a bend at the 14th on the G. Then play 12 on the B, 12 on the high E. But then a bend at the 15th fret on the B string. Then you play 12 on the high E string, 15, 12 on the B, and then a bend and release at the 14 on the G to 12 on the G, over to 14 on the D, so like this. So you hold that for a little bit and then. So that's just kind of some funky stuff there. The double stop there, the 12th fret on the G and the B. And then you end it right before they go back to the riff. There's a quick little double stop. He just uses his pinky real quick across the B and the high E string at the 15th fret. All right, and then we're back to the second verse. Now, the second verse is pretty much similar to the first verse, except for James at least. For Kirk, though, the second half of this second verse, he plays a little bit of variation. So that's what we're gonna cover here. Really, what we covered in the first verse, if you have two guitarists in your band, one guy can be James, and play what we did in verse 1, and then over that you play. It's going to match up for the first half of it at least, and then the second half you're going to see that variation. So here's verse number 2, what Kirk would play. All right, so that's the same as the first half of the verse 1. And then when we do that and go to start repeating the riff again, we have these little alterations. So that starts the same. Right there, but then we go back to that bend at the 7th fret. Kind of do the bend 3 times on the 7th fret of the D. Pull off to the 5th fret there on the D. And then hammer 5 to 7 on the A. Hit the low E open, and then we have this So there's where we were talking about earlier that James is probably going in that low E there, but he's going, we're just hammering 5 to 7 on the low E, 5 on the A, back to the 7 on the low E, then hammering 5 to 7. So other than this note right here, James is playing open, everything else matches up. Except for just that one part. So now leaving this section, Kirk comes up and plays a quick little fill, which I'll show you, which is a double stop to the 12 on the G and the B again. Over to 14 on the D, then hit that 14 again. And then play the double stop to the 12, 14, and then back to the 12. So this. All right, so then after that second verse, we have the chorus again, which has a little bit different ending because it leads us into the interlude section. So all right, so that same chorus, but this little ending here, we have this this kind of F power chord arpeggiated. So that's 8 on the A string, 10 on the D, 10 on the G, then back to that 10 on the D. So that comes up. Like that. Then move it up 2 frets. Now, we can have one guitarist do this. So basically the same thing we did here, just 2 frets higher. And the other one goes something like that, maybe. Or you can both do that. So we have this. When you get to that G string, basically, bend it up a whole step. And then pick it again. All right, then we get to the interlude section. Now this is the part where Marianne Faithfull is singing kind of a little vocal melody that pretty low in the mix. You can hear Kirk playing the melody with her. Now the melody almost matches up. There's a couple of notes in there, 1 or 2 that she resolves to that Kirk doesn't resolve to. It's kind of hard to hear since his part is really low in the mix, but when he plays it live, you can hear it pretty obviously because it's just pretty much him playing it live. And then we have James playing this lower arpeggiated section that is being doubled by an octave pedal much higher. So now how this is being done on the recording, I'm not exactly sure because live, so James is doing this live. So it's a kind of slightly distorted, kind of palm muted, arpeggiated section. So that's what he's doing live. And then that little really high-pitched squealing type thing, that is 3 octaves higher than this. So that's way up here. So, and it's got a very obvious effect on it that it's being done by probably either a whammy pedal or a pitch shift tool, whatever, because it's got that kind of quality to it. It's really tinny. Now, not the way I said, I don't really know how they're doing this live, because this plays along with them live. Is they might probably have like a pitch shifter because I believe the Digitech whammy pedal only goes up 2 octaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an option if you really want to make that part sound like it. I'm going to give you a couple options. One, you're going to need this lower part. That's really kind of one of the most important parts, and that's what James actually plays live. And then I'm going to show you how to play it up an octave. And when you play that up an octave and you have a whammy pedal set 2 octaves higher, you're going to get that exact same pitch that's on the album. So, because I know the whammy pedal will have that 2 octave up feature. And then we'll cover Kirk's melody. So what is James doing underneath first? it's a little bit of that. So we have basically kind of slightly palm muted. So you're picking the low E open, second fret on the A, and then the second fret of the D. It's the first chord. Then you're going to hammer on 2 to 3 on the A string. Then you're going to play 2 on the A, 4 on the D, and then the open G. So we have this. Then what I want you to do is pull off 3 to 2 on the A string, over to 3 on the low E string. So now we're to the G chord. Then you're going to play the open D, open G. So we have this so far. All right, and then we're going to end this by hammering 2 to 3 this time on the A. And then jumping up here, the 5th fret there on the A string, and playing the 7th on the D. And then taking the same thing down to the 2nd fret on the A, 4th fret on the D. So we have this all together for the whole, it just repeats from there. So we have this all together. All right, so that's going on. Now, if you really want to make that little octavey part sound right, you're going to need like a pitch shifter or like a Digitech whammy, which is what most people use for this kind of thing, set in the 2 octave up position. So 100% wet, so all you hear is that signal. And you play this. So it's basically, I'm just going to do exactly octave higher than this. And then when you're playing this, and with that 2 octave up effect, it sounds like 3 octaves higher from what's going on down here. So we have this if you wanted to play it like that. Like I said, probably not the way they did it on the album, but this is just a way that you can get it to sound like it if you're wanting to perform this and you have a second guitarist and you got a whammy pedal and you're, you know, really determined. So we have this. All right, so we have the 12th fret on the low E, 14 on the D, A. So just exactly, we're gonna mirror an octave up what we did it. So if you don't know how to do that, you just follow me. So we have 12 on the low E, 14 on the A, 14 on the D. And then you're gonna hammer 14 to 15 on the A, and then go back to that 14 on the A, 16 on the D, and 12 on the G. So we have this. Like I said, they probably didn't play like this, but I know they did it down the lower part, but George's trying to get that high part going and sounding right. Then we're gonna pull off 15 to 14 on the A string, over to 15 on the low E, and then play 12 on the D, 12 on the G. So we have this. And then we're going to hammer 14 to 15 on the A string, and then jump up here, 17 on the A, 19 on the D, then 14 on the A, 16 on the D, and then repeat. All right, now what's Kirk doing over this? We have this. So then we kind of go back to the some other part. Anyway, so we're gonna start at the 14th fret there on the D, then hammer 11, 12 on the G, then back to 11. Then play 12, 11 on the G, and resolve down to the 12th fret on the D. Then we're back up to the 14th fret on the G string a couple times, and then pull off 12 to 11 on the G, and then over to 14 on the D. So we have this. And then from there, we start back over. Except it's a little bit different of the melody. So we have back to 14 on the D, hammer 11, 12 on the G, back to 11, and then go 12, 11, 12. And then we have this. Now that's where he kind of branches off from the melody that Mary Ann Faithfull is actually singing. So she goes, da, 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 da. She kind of goes all the way down. She goes down to that note, but he just kind of stays up here. So that's that 14 a couple times, bend and release, and then 12 to 11, and then back to that 12. So that's where they'll kind of branch off. So we have this all together. Repeat. All right, so from there, there is a little harmonized line, a lower harmony line that just comes in for a few seconds. So I'm not covering that. It's just kind of a little added harmony part that you'll hear kind of sneak in there in both of the interlude sections right at the very end of our Kirk's melody there. So from there, we get back to the chorus. It's kind of, the chorus is played twice as long. And it's just kind of like, we have this. Now this is the one where Kirk is doing these kind of fills the entire time. So we have this going on underneath it. So he does that for 4 complete times and then ends on that F. And so over that, what Kirk is just kind of doing. Kind of doing a lot of those double stops and stuff that we did earlier, but he's just, I didn't want to just, it kind of goes for the whole chorus, and it's kind of this random, he's just kind of noodling around on it. So instead of trying to get it note for note, it's just kind of, it's doing similar stuff that we did earlier. Do what you want with it, and it'll sound fine. So I just wanted to let you know what's going on there. But that is kind of an extended chorus, kind of played twice as long. And then things just stop. And then there's like a little build up on the G power chord here at the 3rd fret on the low E string. And then that takes us to the main riff again, which is pretty close to the beginning, how we played in the beginning. Just a normal version. Except when it starts to kind of repeat that 4th time, it just ends on that kind of the hammer from 5 to 7, it stops, and then you hear Kirk Solo coming in. And so Kirk Solo, before I get into that solo real quick, it's played over the main riff, played 3 more times, and the chorus ending that we had before, that little, that kind of led us into the interlude, that's the ending. So it's that, just the main riff 3 times that we did, we're just now playing. He does kind of do the main, kind of hear that kind of stuff like he does in the verse. So you can kind of do what you want with it. It's underneath the solo anyway. But it is based off that main riff, and then it goes into that same ending. So let's check out Kirk Solo. I'm going to turn the wah pedal back on. So here we go. All right, so I'll turn that wah pedal off. So we're gonna have this kind of just playing that 12th fret on the G, and then double stops, then down to the 14 on the D. So similar stuff again. Then we have this. So that's the double stops on the 12, 14, bend up, back to 12s, and then back to the bend of the 14. So, all right, from there we're going to go down here to the. So that's some bends at the 2nd fret on the G. Kind of 3 of them. Release, pull off to the open G, and then down to the 2nd fret on the D string. And then you're going to hit the open G in the beat. So I have this. All right, now we're back to kind of the same phrase that we did in the in an earlier solo there. That first solo, we have this. So it's the same exact thing, pretty much. But before we ended it there, we went like this. Right? We ended on that 14, right at the same exact phrase. So that's the first time we played it in the first solo. So the second solo, it ends with the exact same thing, except instead of that last 14, we're gonna jump up here and grab this double stop at the 13 on the B and the high E. And then same thing at the 15th fret of the B and the high E. That's when it to match that little ending in there. So it looks like this. All right, so and then we get to that last interlude section, which is the exact same as the first one. So just more of James doing. And if you wanted to do that high kind of screechy part, you play it here. And set it as a 2 octave up from that 2 octaves up setting on their whammy, and it's going to sound like it, with Kirk playing the same melody. And they kind of does that melody a little bit, and then it just kind of stops, the melodies stop, and it's just that little kind of high harmony whammy pedal thing sounding going on until the end. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.